Tell the listeners why. So you have a difficult job tonight. I'm going to be honest with you. Everyone is watching Ohio. Everyone is watching Missouri. Well, Ohio's looks like it's in the books. Missouri and Illinois. Everyone's watching those two states. Most of my listeners are Bernie Sanders supporters. So you have a difficult job of trying to tie in your race and give some encouragement to the people who are still supporting Bernie Sanders and want to go out tomorrow and do something different. That's our charge. You said that you guys are doing something unique there. You've knocked on 45,000 doors.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that, and how could that type of strategy translate into something that people are listening can actually go do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, so one thing I want to say that's a little different, right? So Bernie Sanders running against Hillary Clinton. Whether you like Hillary Clinton or you don't, she's, at worst a moderate Democrat. Now, the person that I'm running against has voted with Republicans more than any Democrat in the state of New Jersey. Took over $10,000 from Donald Trump to fund his campaign, and has repeatedly partnered with Governor Chris Christie. This is someone who is not a moderate Democrat. He's essentially a moderate Republican with a whole bunch of issues with corruption. So our race is a little different than this national narrative that's going on, where it's establishment Democrat versus progressive. Here we got a progressive versus basically a Republican in this primary, even though it's a Democratic primary. Now, in terms of things that your listeners can do, I know everyone is aware of the kind of phone banking that can be done for Bernie, and it's been shown to be very effective in Michigan, but not so effective in Ohio. I know they spent a ton of time, and a lot of wonderful people made some great calls to folks in Ohio, and it just didn't get the job done. And I really can't stress enough how important it is to get out there and actually talk to people in person. Mm-hmm. Now, sharing stuff online, making those phone calls, excellent stuff if you can only do that. And that's been a large part of how Bernie's been able to spread his message so effectively. But get in touch with a progressive running near you. Get in touch with Bernie's national campaign so you know where the Democratic doors are, and go out and knock on them. Go out and talk to people in person, and you'll be surprised how receptive people are when you come to their door to talk to them and have an honest conversation about what's going on with their democracy.
Yeah, and that's such an important thing that you just said, right? Because we've become comfortable with social media campaigning, that we disconnected from the old school campaigning of let's get out and listen. I've canvassed for several campaigns, several years. I can't even tell you how many doors I've knocked on. I've met people who wanted me to come in and eat dinner with them, and I met people who were ready to pull a gun on me if I didn't leave their house right away. Right? So canvassing is a thrilling experience. But it's really that one-to-one personal relationship. Open up the door, get people to talk to you, and tell them about your candidate and why they are so important. And I think that's something that has fallen by the wayside. A lot of the things that we do now is online campaigning. And so I really admire what you guys are doing there in New Jersey. Tell me how you got so many doors knocked on. What was that strategy, and how can that be replicated?
Well, so this is a big question I get all the time, because there's lots of progressive folks popping up with Bernie's success, and we'll see how many of them stick around after sort of a tough night like this. But the key is making sure that you start early. This can't be something where you latch on to a national movement or something like that. Yes, we all support Bernie. We think it's great. But if you want to run for Congress, you want to run for office, it can't be today it's time for me to go do that. This needs to be something that you're committed to, that you start early, that you make sure you are organized with. And that's really been the difference with our campaign from a lot of other campaigns, is that we are tightly organized. We have 5 or 6 full-time staffers. We have over 120 volunteers. Everyone has specific targeted lists of the Democrats that we need them to talk with, and guidelines for when we want them to go out, how we want them to talk to folks, how to do it. We've trained every single one of our volunteers in person at least twice for door knocking and once for making phone calls at least. And this kind of expansive organization takes time to build, and it also takes a whole lot of discipline and commitment. It is easier to campaign online, to make great posts, to make cool videos. It's even easier to make phone calls or to create apps where people can make calls for you, and we've done that too. But that kind of ground game, it's tough.
Yeah.
It takes organization, it takes commitment, and we're proud to say that we've had some amazing progressives here in South Jersey come out and be a part of what we're putting together.
Yeah, you hit that on the head, man. I can't agree with you more. It's the organization, it's the saturation in the community. Like if we had a map, and I only have really bad examples of like movies where I've seen an outbreak where they show the saturation map, right? So I don't want to use that example, but I want to ask you, based on your district, the first district, how saturated is your district, particularly the Democratic vote that you guys went out and knocked on doors? On a scale of 1 to 10, how saturated would your campaign be in that district? How deep into the neighborhoods did you actually get?
Well, so that's actually probably the wrong question for our district. That's thinking of it in the narrative of presidential politics. So in presidential politics, you need sort of this cultural movement. You need enormous saturation in order to win certain states or to win a nomination or win the presidency. And that's sort of the challenge that Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or John Kasich or whoever has, is you need that kind of dramatic saturation of areas. That's very difficult to do. In our race, it's very different, right? We have 174,000 Democrats in our district. We only need about 15,000 votes to win. That's it, 15,000. Wow. So rather than trying to saturate all 174,000 Democrats, what we need to do is we need to be a little smarter than that, and we need to say, okay, who are the 25 to 35,000 Democrats that are in the age range that is going to be most responsive to us, which, by the way, is 55 to 65 years old? Who are the ones that have the highest voter frequency in the past? And how can we target them specifically? The people that we know are low-hanging fruit, that already know to go out to vote, already are educated on why my opponent isn't the best candidate. All we have to do is get to their door, reach them, and remind them that June 7th is the day to vote. So our strategy in our district has been much more data-driven, much more targeted. And of course, you know, if we could convince every one of those 174,000 Democrats, if we could bring out young people, would I love to do that? Absolutely. I think that would be a great thing, but that's not what we need to do to be successful here.
Okay, gotcha. That's actually that's really something serious. I like that. I like that. So you guys, you have a very targeted list, data-driven. You know who you're after. You know who you're targeted. And if you were going after 35,000, but you've knocked on 45,000 doors, and you or have 45,000 doors, and you've had 50,000 calls, phone bank, so your saturation rate of the people that you needed to hear your message is pretty thorough. Then it sounds like you guys are hitting it exactly where you need to hit it.
Yeah. So there's some overlap, right? So like. Part of the challenge too is like, where are our volunteers located? So I try to make sure that I try to simplify everything. And that's a message for all you people out there who are trying to organize, that are trying to engage, whether it's for Bernie Sanders or for whoever, make things as simple as possible for volunteers, right? So with volunteers, what I like to do is say, okay, who are the Democrats that we most want to reach within 5 miles of your home, within 1 mile of your home, within the neighborhood that you live in? So that way, people can engage those folks as easy as possible. They get home from work, they can go out and do an hour without having to drive 30 minutes somewhere to do an hour and then drive 30 minutes back. That's a whole stressful thing. They'll never do it. So we don't have, through our door knocking, the 100% most efficient, but we are targeting based on that. Where we are 100% efficient is in the people that we're sending mail to, right? So there's 9,215 households in my district that voted in 2 out of the 2 last primaries. So those people are all getting a piece. There's people in my hometown where my grandfather was the mayor. Those people are getting a piece. So our targeted mailing, our advertising, our social media is as targeted, as efficient as possible. And then we try to do our best with our door knocking and phone calls.